Africa, we provide about 30% of the world's natural resources. So what the West wants and has done is that we cannot control our resources. If we do, and what that means by control is not just exporting raw materials and sending it to the world. They make the money on the surplus. So we export the raw materials, they manufacture and process it, in the West or around the world. And if you know a little bit about economics, when you manufacture things, that's when you build up a middle class. That's when you build your economy. And then they sell us back the finished goods in a surplus. So that's why things are so expensive in Nigeria. If we manufactured in Nigeria, the prices of things would be stable. We would be able to keep the prices low because we know it's coming from our soil. And so that is how they get Africa. And that's the place that they've put Africa in. So it's up to us to liberate ourselves from that.
Indeed.
And anytime we do that, a leader is killed, one of our leaders are killed, or wiped out, something happens. And there is this sort of idea that the people that they have, that they have put in office sort of are, some people call them puppets, however you want to call them, but they're puppets that are there to maintain the global order, to keep Africa underdeveloped. These leaders tend to enrich themselves.
Yeah.
And the West is able to enrich itself even further. But that's sort of the deal that they have in Africa.
Let's talk about then, where is the responsibility then of Africa itself? Yes, they don't want us to develop. Yes, they will continue to keep us down. At the end of the day, human beings are inherently selfish, right? Every single president of the world is about country first. As I often find myself saying about people when it comes to Harris and Trump and every American president before them, they are America first, which for me is what MAGA means. It doesn't actually mean Trump, in my opinion. It means, well, after all, Trump wasn't the first to use it. It was Ronald Reagan that was the first to use it. So where then is the responsibility for African leaders itself? Both African leaders and Africans themselves. These Africans who are constantly, like you said, defaulting to Western narratives to talk about self, to talk about, continent, country, etc. Where is the responsibility?
The responsibility is the African people. It's not your fault what happens to you, but it's your responsibility to fix it and to chart the course of your life, right? One thing about the African people, and this is why I made this documentary, is that there's a reason for a time period in Nigeria our history was not taught in our schools. There's a reason that we are not circulating information amongst ourselves, right? Those who don't know their history are doomed to repeat it. And so that responsibility, this is why it's part of my job to spread the information so people understand the history of what has happened. But it's our responsibility, because nothing happens to you that you don't allow. So even the leaders, even as far as whoever we have as leaders, you can say, oh, they stole the election, they rigged the election. Why did you allow it to happen? Indeed. And this is not me saying that it's good.
Yeah.
This is not me, I'm not saying that, I'm not taking the side of the leaders. I'm just thinking about a lion. When you think about survival of the fittest, when that lion comes and sees you in the desert, and what are you going to do about it? And I think what I want to see in Africa, especially the youth, is an activation, is a waking up, is a spreading of our information, sharing of our information, and actually putting together real, true leadership. Seasoned, because we've had this, military eras. I do not advocate for that. I think it's, awful. I know some people want that back, but God forbid. I think when I look at countries that have developed in the past, say 30, 40 years, I'm thinking especially Asian countries like, Korea, China, Singapore, even though Singapore is interesting, because some of these countries don't have any resources, so you can't really compare them to Africa, because it's clear that Africa has the resources, so everybody is going to fight for Africa. Who cares if Singapore develops? But when you look at all of them, right? Well, Saudi Arabia, when you look at them, what is the key thing that they all had? They had authoritarian leadership. Right? They have authoritarian leadership, and authoritarian leadership is not military leadership. So authoritarian leadership is about, you have a leader that decides, it's almost like a company, right? We're all used to authoritarian, leadership. If you work in any sort of corporate setting, there's a one leader, they have a direction, and this is where the country is going. When you start, even when the West developed, it didn't develop from democracy. So this sort of tool of us saying, oh, we have to have democracy, is also the West trying to cripple us. Because when you have so many people in government that are just, that causes the conflicts and all of that, that's how you stop growth. So and Africa has been, I hate to use the word cursed, but stagnant in a way, because it's either we have that democratic thing whereby all these people are fighting in governments and we're going in different directions, and somebody comes, they change course, another person comes, they change course, or we have a sort of like this dictator type military ruler that is still trying to run you into the ground. And so the countries that I specifically brought up, these leaders were seasoned. These leaders had a, education in economics and all these things, understood business, and they decided, we have this is our target, just like any, this is our target, this is our growth, our goal for growth, and these are the steps that we're going to do to build that.
Indeed.
And unfortunately, in authoritarian countries, freedom of press does not come with that. Because you have to control the narrative around your country around the world. So even somewhere like, so people love to give China, crap for that. Countries like Singapore don't have freedom of press. Countries like Saudi Arabia don't have freedom of press. But when you see Saudi Arabia, or even UAE, they don't have freedom of press. But when you see those countries, so the question for Nigerians are: would you rather be talking on the internet and insulting your leadership, or would you rather your country actually works?
Okay.
So it's part of the propaganda from the West that tells us that, that
we have to look like them. We have to do democracy like them.
And they didn't even look like them when they were building. So it's interesting.
Again, this is why I had to have this conversation with you. People have been calling since we've been speaking and I didn't answer them. Kenny, I'm getting messages. People are loving the conversation we're having. They're loving your point of view. They find it refreshing. Sisi Oge, greetings to you and your very intelligent guest. She has a very, very clear picture of Nigeria and by extension Africa's problem and the solutions. She deserves to be Nigeria's next president. I didn't say that, they did. Right.
Hello.
Yes, good afternoon.
This is Joy.
Joy, go ahead.
I'm a black woman. Nigeria, God bless. That's your guest.
My guest is Kenim O. You can follow her at Kenim O on Instagram. I am Kenim O.
I am Kenim on Instagram.
Yeah, I am Kenim on Instagram. Go on.
She is highly intelligent and understands Africans.
You guys, please be very, very succinct. I know you all want to talk to her. We don't have time. We literally have, about 10 minutes left. That's how fast 1 hour goes. And I can't answer all your calls. All the lines are alive, Kenny. You caused this. Hello?
Hello, Sister.
Good afternoon. Quickly, very quickly.
Good afternoon, Sister.
Go ahead.
I thank your guest so much. She's very intelligent. I don't know that she's a woman. Sister, see here, before we are going to be free, what will make us to be free is to know our names in Africa, what it means. To use our name to start the life. That's the only thing that will solve our problem. I want her to think about it. Every name in Africa, I'm an Igbo man. It makes you to know where you belong.
Thank you. Right, I'm coming to your calls now. Hello?
Thank you to your guest, Cecilia. But I just want to ask, how does she push this her narrative? It's a beautiful concept. How is she pushing this so that everybody can be carried along, the youth and even the generations that are coming? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Well, Mrs. Oboli, I can probably answer that for you. The documentary. You've got to go and watch her documentary.